The story of the Pokot people is a long and fascinating one. It begins many centuries ago, far to the north of their current homeland. The Pokot are part of a larger group of people known as the Kalenjin. Their ancestors lived in the southern parts of what is now Ethiopia. They were pastoralists, people who moved with their herds of cattle, sheep and goats. Over time these groups began a slow migration southwards. They were searching for better grazing lands and fresh water for their animals. This journey, was not a single event but a series of movements that took place over many generations, a gradual expansion into the vast landscapes of East Africa. This migration eventually brought them into the highlands and plains of what is now western Kenya and eastern Uganda. It was here, around the Cherangani Hills and Mount Elgon, that the Pokot established their new homeland. The land was fertile and offered good pasture for their livestock, which were central to their way of life. They settled in this region, adapting to the new environment and interacting with other communities they encountered. Their oral traditions and stories, passed down from one generation to the next, still speak of this ancient journey. These tales are filled with details of their travels, the challenges they faced, and the leaders who guided them to their present home. As the Pokot community grew and spread out, a natural division occurred. This split was not due to conflict but was a practical response to the diverse landscape they now inhabited. One group chose to settle in the hilly, high-altitude areas like the Cherangani Hills. They became known as the Pai Pa Tuk, or the Hill Pokot. These people adapted to a more settled, agricultural lifestyle. They began to cultivate crops like sorghum and millet, taking advantage of the reliable rainfall and fertile soils. This agricultural practice supplemented their traditional pastoralism, creating a mixed economy that was well suited to the highlands. In contrast, the other group moved down into the hotter, drier lowlands of the Rift Valley. They became the Pi Pa Paks, or the Plains Pokot. Their environment was less suited to farming, so they continued the purely pastoralist traditions of their ancestors. Their lives revolved entirely around their herds of cattle, camels, goats, and sheep. They were semi-nomadic, constantly moving across the vast plains in search of water and grazing land for their animals. This division created two distinct but related ways of life within the same community, each shaped by the unique demands and opportunities of their chosen environment. For both the Hill and Plains Pokot, cattle were far more than just a source of food. Cattle represented wealth, status, and social security. They were the currency for paying bride price, settling disputes, and forging social bonds. A man's importance in the community was often measured by the size of his herd. This deep cultural significance of livestock gave rise to the tradition of cattle raiding. Raiding was not simply theft, it was a complex social practice. Young men, known as Morans, would prove their bravery and skill by raiding the herds of neighboring communities, such as the Turkana or Marakwet. Success brought them prestige and the wealth needed to marry and start a family. These raids, however, were a major source of conflict. While they were a rite of passage within Pokot society, they led to cycles of attack and counterattack with their neighbors. A successful raid by one group would inevitably provoke a retaliatory raid from the other. This created a state of near-constant low-level warfare in the region. The conflicts were fought with traditional weapons like spears and shields, and while they were often small in scale, they could be deadly. The history of the region is filled with stories of famous warriors and legendary raids, reflecting the central role that this practice played in shaping intercommunal relations for centuries. The arrival of the British in the late 19th century brought a new and powerful force into this volatile region. The colonial administrators sought to establish control and impose their own laws, which clashed directly with Pokot traditions. They viewed cattle raiding not as a cultural practice but as criminal activity that needed to be stamped out. The British tried to pacify the region by force, sending armed expeditions into Pokot territory. This intrusion was met with strong resistance. The Pokot people, proud and independent, were not willing to give up their way of life or their sovereignty without a fight. This resistance was fierce and sustained. Pokot warriors, using their knowledge of the difficult terrain, waged a long guerrilla war against the colonial forces. They conducted raids on British outposts and ambushed patrols, making it very difficult for the administrators to establish a firm grip on the area. the British responded with overwhelming force, conducting so-called punitive expeditions where they would seize massive numbers of cattle to punish the community. This policy was devastating, as it struck at the very heart of the Pokot economy and culture. Despite the heavy losses, the Pokot resistance continued for many years, a testament to their determination to defend their independence. When Kenya gained its independence from Britain in 1963, it marked the beginning of a new era for the Pokot people. The post-independence government brought significant changes, introducing services that had been largely absent during the colonial period. One of the most important developments was the expansion of education. Schools were built in Pokot lands, offering children the chance to receive a formal education for the first time. This was a major shift for a community that had traditionally relied on oral history and practical training. Education opened up new pathways and opportunities beyond pastoralism and agriculture for the younger generation. Alongside education, the new government also began to invest in healthcare and infrastructure. Clinics and health centers were established, providing access to modern medicine and improving the general well-being of the population. Roads were gradually improved, connecting the remote Pokot region more closely to the rest of the country. These developments helped to slowly integrate the Pokot into the new Kenyan nation. Pokot leaders also began to participate in national politics. They started representing their people in parliament, advocating for their community's needs, and ensuring their voices were heard at the national level, a significant step forward from the marginalization of the colonial years. However, the journey since independence has not been without its challenges. The tradition of cattle raiding, though suppressed by the British, did not disappear. In the post-colonial era, it evolved. The availability of modern automatic weapons which flowed into the region from conflicts in neighboring countries like Uganda and Sudan transformed raiding into a much deadlier and more destructive activity. The old rules of engagement, which had limited the scale of violence, were often ignored. The conflicts between the Pokot and their neighbors became more intense, leading to significant loss of life and disrupting development in the region. Furthermore, the Pokot homeland has remained one of the most underdeveloped regions in Kenya. Decades of marginalization have left the community struggling with high poverty levels, food insecurity, and limited access to basic services like clean water and electricity. The harsh climate, marked by frequent droughts, makes pastoralism an increasingly precarious way of life. These persistent challenges have meant that while independence brought new opportunities, the promise of development has been slow to materialize for many Pokot people, who continue to face significant hardships in their daily lives. In recent decades, there has been a concerted effort to address these deep-rooted challenges. A key focus has been on peace building. Local community leaders, church groups, and non-governmental organizations have been working tirelessly to end the cycle of violence associated with cattle raiding. They organize peace meetings and dialogues between the Pokot and their neighbors, such as the Turkana and Marakwet. These initiatives aim to build trust and find alternative, non-violent ways to resolve disputes. They often involve elders from different communities coming together to perform traditional reconciliation ceremonies, which hold deep cultural meaning and are crucial for lasting peace. Education continues to be a powerful agent of change within Pokot society. As more children, including girls, attend school and proceed to university, they bring back new ideas and skills to their communities. An educated younger generation is increasingly seeking opportunities beyond traditional livelihoods. They are becoming teachers, doctors, business owners, and political leaders. This shift is slowly transforming the community from within, creating a more diverse economy, and reducing the sole reliance on pastoralism. Education is seen by many as the most promising path towards a more prosperous and peaceful future for the Pokot people. The Pokot people are also becoming more integrated into the political and economic life of Kenya. They are active participants in both local and national governance, electing leaders who advocate for their interests. Devolution, which transferred power and resources from the national government to county governments, has been particularly important. It has allowed the Pokot community, through the West Pokot County government, to have more control over their own development priorities. They can now direct funds towards projects that directly address their needs, such as building new schools, improving water supply, and supporting local businesses. In conclusion, the journey of the Pokot people is a powerful story of resilience. From their ancient migrations to their resistance against colonial rule and their navigation of modern challenges, they have consistently demonstrated remarkable strength and adaptability. While they continue to face significant obstacles including conflict, poverty, and climate change, their deep cultural pride and growing engagement with education and peace-building offer hope for the future. The Pokot people remain a vital and vibrant part of Kenya's diverse cultural fabric, their story a testament to the enduring spirit of a community that has weathered every storm it has faced.